Hi everyone, so quick video on how we can graph using dilations, translations and reflections, so a little bit more of a complex example than what we've done before. So you can see here we've got the graph y equals negative a third bracket x plus 4 all squared take 2. And we talked about how if we had a graph such as y equals x take h all squared plus k, that h is the horizontal translation and k is the vertical translation. Now we also mentioned what happens in order to get the graph flipping or the width of the graph to change. And so that's a little bit extra that we're just going to quickly talk about before we do an example. So instead of just writing it as y equals x take h all squared plus k, the way we can actually write it is that y equals a bracket x take h all squared plus k. So if k is positive, then we get a vertical translation up. If it's negative, we get a vertical translation down. If h is positive, we get a horizontal translation to the right. So as you see there, that would make that bracket x take h all squared. If h is negative, you get a horizontal translation to the left. If a is negative, the graph actually reflects, and it reflects in the x-axis, so you get the graph turning upside down like that. If the magnitude of a is greater than 1, then the graph goes narrower. What I mean by the magnitude of a is that's the size of a. So for example, 3 and negative 3 all have a magnitude of 3. That's because the magnitude is just talking about the size and not about the sign. So if we've got a magnitude of a that's greater than 1, the graph goes narrower. If the magnitude of a is less than 1, in other words, if the a is a fraction, then the graph actually goes wider. So if we then look at that on our graph up here, we want to draw the graph of y equals negative a third x plus 4 all squared take a half. So if we break that graph down before we draw it, we think, well, a is negative and a fraction. So that means that compared to the graph y equals x squared, we are going to reflect it, and we are also going to make it wider. Now it says generally these questions say to sketch, so it doesn't have to be really accurate. You don't have to work out exactly what negative a third looks like, but if you've got the graph of y equals x squared, you can just draw it relative to that and make it a bit wider. Then we've got x plus 4 all squared take 2. So h is positive, that means it's going to move it 4 to the right. And k is negative, so it's going to move it 2 down. So that's where we have our graph, and that's what it looks like. Now remember, when you're graphing a function, what you always do first is draw the graph of y equals x squared. And we talked about how we draw that. We generally draw that by drawing 3 points. The points 0, 0, 1, 1, and negative 1, 1. So before you draw that graph, make sure that you actually put a scale on your axis. So you're going to have 1, negative 1, 1, negative 1. So we've got 1, negative 1, 1, and negative 1. Now we're going to plot some points. So we're going to plot the 0, 0, 1, 1, and negative 1, 1. So here we go. 0, 0 goes there, 1, 1 goes there, negative 1, 1 goes there. Can't stress enough, always, always, always plot those points, because then you can draw the graph of y equals x squared relative to those points. It's a bit hard for me to do smoothly on this, but hopefully you can join it nice and smoothly so that it touches at 0, 0. So everything that you draw now, when you're drawing the graph of y equals negative a third x plus 4 squared take 2, is done relative to that graph. You also want to make sure you label that graph, so that becomes y equals x squared. So we said before we're going to flip it because of the negative. We're also going to make it narrower. But we also want to move it across. The h is positive, so we're going to move it 4 right, and the k is negative, so we're going to move it 2 down. Now, just remember, when you've got a graph of this form, the vertex of the graph is actually hk. And that makes it really easy to draw. The vertex, remember, is that turning point down the bottom of the graph. So that's the first thing you can draw, is draw the vertex. So 1, we're going to draw y equals x squared. 2, we're going to draw our vertex, or place our vertex. So it's 8k, we've got x plus 4 all squared, take 2. Remember that plus really means that we've got take there, so 8 is actually negative 4. So our vertex, our hk in this case, is actually going to be negative 4, 2. So let's plot that. We're going to go 1, negative 2, negative 4, and then 2. We're going to move that. It should be negative 2, sorry. Oh, negative 4, negative 2. So 4's there, and then we're going to move it 1, 2, down there. And there's our point right there. That's our turning point of our graph. Alright, now we know the graph is going to go upside down, and it's also going to go narrower. And so we can just sketch that. Make the graph a bit narrower and upside down. Now if I look at that, I would say that's not really that much narrower. I'm just going to make sure that it's clear that I'm actually going narrower so that I understand, making it clear that I understand what this graph is. And then I'd just put that there, and I'd label that point as negative 4, negative 2. Now you might be going, that's not that accurate. I don't really care. Draw y equals x squared accurately with 0, 0, 1, 1, negative 1, 1. Then draw y, the vertex, and then draw the graph applying the other factors that you've got there. Okay, so I hope that helps understand how you can graph a little bit more of a complex example.